Good morning, everyone, and welcome along to our Friday morning session. We're looking at CHFD counts. It's part 3 of our project series of webinars that we'll be looking. So it's final installment. We're looking at analysis and reports today. So we'll spend about 45 minutes on that, hoping I can keep to time today. As usual, the recording will be made available afterwards as well. Now, it's just myself. I'm going solo with you today. So any questions, I'll try and pick up as we work through. But again, it may be like previous sessions where if there are any outstanding, I've just had to pick them up afterwards. But keep your questions coming. I will endeavour to try and answer as many as I can. Now, on the subject of questions, and I'm sure you've seen all this before, I'll not labour on it today. As usual, if you've got any questions, you just need to pop them in the questions panel. Slides are available as normal. They'll be available afterwards as well. I'll try and include the link just in case anyone wants those. But as usual, I would encourage you to go into the help centre to get the detailed information should you want it. So your email with the links on that you need, that will be with you around about an hour or so after we finish today, depending on when I can get the recording uploaded. But should be within an hour, hopefully. But certainly by the end of today. Right, okay. This is what we're going to be covering in today's session then. So we're going to start with a little bit of an overview, a little bit of a recap on what we've covered so far. We're then going to just get stuck into the analysis options that you've got available, looking within the project records themselves, and also the inquiry option, which is within the project ledger. Give you an idea of what you can find out on there and what you can see. And one of the things that you may not be aware of on the inquiry option is the ability to drill down. It's one of those things that's often overlooked. Then we're going to switch across to reports. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the reports today. There's quite a few of those. I'll just pick out some key reports. It just really depends what information you're after. So we'll cover a few of them though. And then just at the end, just as normal, we'll explain more about the additional support questions. Now, if anyone has any thoughts or ideas about what you'd like to see next as well, not just for projects, but just in general, I've included that exact question on the follow-up email, just to remind you. So if you've got any, then you can simply reply to that webinar email. Some people like to pop it on the survey, great. But if you forget, or maybe it doesn't pop up when you leave, I know for some it will get blocked. So I've just included it on the follow-up email as well. So again, you'll get that with the links, recordings, etc. So that's around about an hour after we finish. Right, let's start with a bit of an overview then. So again, just a recap on where we are. So part 1, which we ran about 2 weeks ago now, we looked at setting up the project's ledger, so configuring that, setting up cost types, cost codes, etc. Also, we looked at the basics of creating records as well. So what options have you got available? And we're going to be looking at the records in a bit more detail today. So once you've started entering transactions, looking at the analysis functionality within there. Last week, our lengthy session, we started looking at recording costs and revenue. So quite a bit into that. So again, the recordings of the sessions are available. I've included the link. The link will also be included in your follow-up email. And today we're just going to almost like wrap up the project series sessions by looking at the analysis and reports. Right, let's get stuck in then. So analysis options. We're going to start by looking within the record itself. So you've got 4 key tabs within the project record. So you've got the analysis tab, which is your top level summary. You've got your budgets, which we sort of looked at in session 1, where you can set your budgets. It doesn't show you any costs or anything against those budgets on that specific screen. But we'll just have a bit of a recap on budgets. We're going to look at the structure because there's some top level values and costs, etc. on there. We'll look at the activity and then we'll switch across to the inquiry tab as well. One thing to be aware of as well, a little tip, just in case you're not aware, is that you do have what you would term the configurable columns in your projects list as well. So anyway, let's switch across to my screen and we'll get stuck in. Right, so into projects, I'll quickly cover the configurable columns first of all before we go into the record. So this is the standard sort of view. In fact, I think I've got an extra, I've got one of my analysis fields switched on as well. Let's just go back to the default view. So this is your standard view. You've got different views at the top as well, just for looking at your records. And obviously you've got filters. We're going to come back to those a little bit later for so it only displays the information that you're after. That could be useful on the reporting side as well. So we got the project reference, the name that you've keyed in, it shows the status, and also if you've linked it to one, it would show you the customer as well. And you can change those views as well. You can change by, if you prefer, by name or by project reference. But we'll just go back to the standard view in this case. So that's something to be aware of, those views at the top. Now you can show additional information as well. So when I'm talking about analysis, you might just be after top level information about a particular project. So if you just right click any of your column headings, it will give you an idea, and there's certain information as well, such as profit to date, outstanding to bill, total bills so far, that type of information, it can be displayed. So I think when I started there, I had the project manager field switched on. So I just click it and it will display that column. If you want to display the other information, just a case of what is it you want to display. So if I want to see the price quoted, for instance, I can switch that on as well. Now, one thing you can't do is you can't rearrange the columns. It's just a case of you can show or hide certain information. That's something we get requested for. I think that's been logged many times as a request for change. Be nice to see it introduced into the software. But at the moment, it's just a case of you can switch them on and off. And again, if you want to get back to the sort of standard view, as it were, just right click any of your column headings and then use defaults. Anyway, we'll pop into the records themselves and we'll have a look at some of the options that you've got when it comes to analyzing your projects. So let's start with, first of all, obviously you've got the details tab. I'm not going to cover anything on that today. Might come back to the customer details a little bit, not the customer details, I'm thinking of the analysis fields. We'll come back to that a little bit later on. So we're going to look at the analysis, the budgets, the structure, and also the activity. So analysis is essentially it's your top level information about your project. So you got your billing totals. You can see when an invoice or revenue was last entered. So you can see how much has been billed so far, the billed net and the billed VAT. You've also got your price quoted. Now that's not driven by anything. That's just a case of manually entering that when you first set up your record. You've got in the revenue totals, you've also got your profit to date. So your profit to date is just your billed net less your actual cost. So it will be this value over here. So it's specifically that one. It's not I don't think it's not the total cost, it's the actual cost. So your billed net less your actual cost. That's where that figure should come from. Outstanding to bill as well is obviously just your price quoted less your billed net. Be nice to have little help options next to these as well, just to explain how that calculates. You've got your analysis types. Again, we'll come back to that when we come to reporting, because we get a lot of requests for reports, not just on the projects area, but throughout. And it's something that when you start applying filters or maybe using the analysis types, it helps you to get at information. So a common call, for instance, to our support team would be, right, I like this report, but it's not quite what I'm after. It doesn't include this filter in the criteria, for instance. And can I have a new report? And rather than that, the majority of those types of calls are just, well, have you come across filters before? Apply a filter to your project list beforehand. and then run your report, and it hopefully will get what you're after. Angel or Angel, your question there, you've noticed these figures are including VAT. Some will, some won't. It depends if you're VAT registered. It will depend on which figure you're actually looking at. So for instance, your total build is going to be, it would include VAT, that one, but your build net and your build VAT, so you do have the breakdown there, for instance. Now your budget totals, that's nice and straightforward. You've got your total budget, your 17,000 there. Obviously it just comes from your budget screen. So if you've entered any budget values in there, now I've tried to keep it nice and simple today. So all those spurious cost codes and things like that that we set up last week, where we couldn't think what to put at the time, or when we did that in session 1 as well, I've just filtered those all out just to try and sort of declutter the screen a little bit so you can see what's happening. So any values you've got in there, so let's just key in another £500 as an example, and that will automatically update to the total budget value. You've got your actual what you term your actual variance. Now your actual variance is going to be essentially your total budget, this figure at the top here, minus your actual cost, so this value here, and then you've got your total variance. So that brings in any committed costs that you might have down here as well. And that's quite a common theme, that one, when we're looking at analysis and reports. Do you want to include the committed costs or not? And you'll see normally when you've got reports, when there's values involved or profitability involved, some people like to include committed costs, some don't. So you'll have that choice. That's one of the reasons you've got these options at the top here, and also in the cost totals as well. It breaks them down. Now, if you need to find out where these values come from, what you can do, so committed cost as an example, if you're looking at one and thinking, what on earth's that? I wasn't expecting that. Then you can just click on your little, I suppose what you would term, I'm sure these used to be called hot links when they were first introduced. So you click your little arrow icon next to it, and it would take you in. And we can see in this case that we've got some product codes. So our product code, I should say, of bricks, and we've got a quantity of 1 and that value. So you got that breakdown should you need it. You can print that list as well should you want it. So you've got your total costs there as well. You're just asking all the explanations of the various tools on the analysis tab available on the Sage website. Let's just have a quick look. I'll just click the help icon at the top. Let's have a look within the project record. So the analysis, we've got it. And so it's got some of them in there, but it's not really, it's not really explaining the individual boxes that I've just gone through. So you've got some top level information about them there. Let's close out of the help. Obviously, when you're in a screen as well, if you're on version 29 or above, you get this sort of help option in the top corner, or any other version, and including version 29, you can just press F1. It'll bring up the help relating to whatever it is you're looking at. So that's the analysis tab. So that's almost like your top level. And again, some of these values that can be brought through. If I just close out of that, they can be brought through and displayed as individual columns. So you've got things like your build net, your build VAT, your total build, etc. So you've got some of them values on there at the bottom there as well. Right, so let's pop back into the record. Now, if you pop into budgets, not a lot of analysis going on here, but obviously the budget values will feed into the other areas. So you don't need to add anything. The only thing you can really do in this screen is amend the budget values themselves. Things like your cost types, the related, the cost codes and the relevant descriptions, they'll be pulled through automatically for me. So if I go and add another one in, let's just quickly do that. So we'll do a cost code for labor as an example. So remember, a lot of your project settings, if you need to configure and add additional cost types or cost codes in there, you'll do that within settings configuration. That's something that we did cover in session 1. So we've got the project costing option at the top, and we'll add another labor code. So we'll just add code. I'll call it lab 2. And I'll just call it labor 2 as well. Just keep it nice and simple, and I'll link that to labor there. Obviously, you may have different trades, that type of thing that you want to analyze your costs by. So we just OK that. It's on the list. OK that. And if I go back to projects, back into project 1, back onto the budgets, and you'll see it's automatically being pulled through. So again, if anyone remembers the old job costing software, which was very similar, a few extra benefits in that software, but if anyone remembers it, in job costing, you had to add those codes in manually. So this does it automatically for you. So a little bit of a time save, and then you can just start keying them in. Right, again, keep your questions coming. I think I've only got Aidy's question that's outstanding so far. I'll pick that up at the end, Aidy, if you don't mind, just with relation to backing up. Right, let's pop on to the next tab, which is the structure. Now, this is something we alluded to a little bit in the first session where we looked at setting up the records. And this is where you can set up if you've got sub-projects. Now, remember, sub-projects, they need to be set up as a project record in their own right. Easy enough to add them. The one thing that normally catches people out when you try to add them, and probably catch me out as well, if I just set up, let's just go and add a new one in there. So we'll set up project 4. I'll just try and keep my my codes nice and tidy. Actually, I'll just call it garage roof. We'll call that one garage roof as well. Helps if you could type. Again, these are just text-based field, the name and the description, so pop in whatever you want. Now, the thing that normally catches people out when you're setting up a structure, if you do need to break it down to help you with the analysis section. So if you've got different stages, for instance, different parts of a project, you can set them up individually. So I've got the 4 set up. If I just go back into the first one, and when I go to the structure, I can either add a new option. So if I click that, it would ask me, right, I can set up a sub-project there and then if I wanted to. So I could have keyed in project 4 and give it a name if I wanted to. Maybe sometimes it's a little bit easier when if you do setting up the structure in that way. Or if it does already exist, you can click add existing. Now, the one thing that catches people out, I find, is when you go to add an existing project, when you click OK, it's this. Project cannot be added to the structure. All projects in the structure must be linked to the same customer. So if at any points, any of the projects, whether it's the top one or a sub-project, if you've set them up, they must all be linked to the same customer if one is linked to any of them. So to do that, I'll just close out. I'll go back to project 4. And it's just this little field here. So I'll just link it to the same customer that I've used. Actually, let me just double check, see which one I've linked the first one to. That one was to this Fred Bryant account. So I'll just go and set that one as well. There it is. Save it. And then if I go back to project 1, into the structure, and now I can click not add new, get carried away now. If I click add existing, and then I should be able to select it. So there it is. So our main project now has 2 sub-projects. And Gail, you're mentioning there with the cost types, should these be including or excluding VAT? You'd normally expect them to exclude VAT. So if you're in the UK, obviously, if you know, if you're, let's say you incur an expense where that's included, you would normally be expected to be able to recover that VAT. So it's just the net value. That's what you would be expecting to see. Hopefully you'll see that in as we go through the various other sections. Now on the structure tab, again, we've got this sort of top level information. So we got things like you build net, build VAT on that. So again, just picking up on Angel's point there, you've got that breakdown, total bill so far. So that's going to be your gross. Yeah, you've got your budget, you've got your variances, etc. So again, you've got your totals. Now this option here, rolled up totals, what this is used for is at this stage, I can see this information, and this is only displaying it for essentially the top level project. So transactions that have been posted directly to, in my case, project 1. But this rolled up totals enables me to include transactions and values that have been posted to, in this case, anything within the sub-projects. So do I want to include them or not in this analysis? And again, that's something you'll find during the session today as well. When you're looking at analysis and reports, do you want to include that information or not? Now, if I tick it, you probably find there's not a lot changes. Some of the costs will increase if I just take the tick out. So you'll see this one, for instance. What I have done already is I've already recorded some costs against project 2. Now, if I wanted to see specifically project 2 and its analysis in this section, I just need to go in that specific record. Or as you can see, I can also click into it as well. But if I want to include them, that's what this little tick box is for. You'll see that in a few different areas, including things like the activity when we'll look at that screen in a second. So that's the analysis on the bottom there. You can also see the options that you've got along the bottom as well. So you can view your structure by name or by reference. I like to do mine by reference when I'm demoing this, just so I can keep it nice and simple. I often find if I do it by name, as long as you've used a name that you can easily recognize, or you've got some sort of structure to that, it will make it easy enough. But I tend not to when I'm running these demos, so much easier for me if I just do it by reference. Now these little arrows, just in case you're wondering about these, this is just so you can move sub-projects around within the structure. So it just really depends what you want. So if you want to rearrange the structure or anything like that, you can do that. Right, okay, so next tab we're going to look at, unless anyone's got any additional questions just at that point, we'll pick up on the activity itself. Right, let's just reset this window. So this is the activity. I'm sure you're more than familiar with that. I think we did take a peep at that in previous sessions, where it's going to show you essentially all the transactions associated with the project itself. So we've got things like, obviously, and again, something we did explain last week is that this is what you would term your project transaction number in the first column. Now that's not necessarily the same as the audit trail number. So when you're looking within the transactions list, this screen here, so these are all the transactions that appear and affect your things like your nominal codes, your bank records, your customer, your suppliers. So those are what you would term your audit trail transactions. When we're looking at the activity within a project, so back to that one, you've got your audit trail number, and you've also got what we term your project transaction number. So it's slightly different. The only time they'd always be the same is if every time you entered an audit trail transaction, that transaction related to a project as well. Soon as you don't, any transaction whatsoever, they're going to become out of sync. So my first few do, but then you can see transaction 9, which is a project only transaction. So a project charge that I've put through for labour in this case, this one here. It has a project transaction number, but it's not an audit trail transaction. So this is where you'd see your initial analysis. Now you can send your list to Excel as well. Sometimes that's quite a handy feature. It's available just about throughout the software, that one. But interestingly, it's not available when you're, if you want to, it's not the budgets I was looking at. I think it was that, yeah, the analysis. I was looking at that and I'm thinking, I was looking at that the other day and I thought, well, why is it not included on that one? But unfortunately it isn't. We'll get that one. Hopefully we'll get that one amended. Anyway, we've got this list of transactions. You've got your option to include rolled up transactions as well. So do you want to see the transactions being pulled in that are from the sub projects as well? So maybe you want to see all cost transactions associated not only with the top level project, but any sub projects as well. So if you do, you can just tick the box. Now remember, for sub projects, you can have up to 10 levels. Now that's not 10 sub projects, it's 10 levels of sub projects, meaning that a sub-project could have a sub-project, could have a sub-project, or essentially down to 10 levels. So it can be very, very detailed if needed. Not sure how many people actually use the structure. Has anyone used that yet? If you have, let me know. We tend to find that certainly when I speak to people about projects, that's not the case. Just people are more keeping it just nice and straightforward. But anyway, you do have that option. You've got your option to filter your ranges as well, the information that's there. So initially, you'll have things like just the months of your current financial year, just a nice, easy way. You'll see here, it changes the date range for me. Alternatively, you can just go down to your custom range, and then it's asking you, right, a bit more specific then. What is it you want to see? Now, it will default when you first come into this custom range. So essentially, it resets it if you close out of the record and come back in. It'll reset your view. Here you've got obviously your transaction range. This is based on the project transactions, not the audit number. Obviously, some of your project transactions won't have audit numbers, so it filters on the project transaction number. You can choose the transaction types that you want to display. So are you wanting to see, let's say, purchase invoices only? And you can also set your date range as well. Now that date range, because I'd previously selected January, it's obviously pulled that through as well. So we'll just amend that. We'll say we'll go up to the end of April. And then I'll just OK that. And you can see it now filters that through. So you can see what we've just specified. It shows that on the sort of towards the upper right-hand side of the screen there. Again, just to emphasize that though, if you close out of your record and then come back into it, back into the activity, actually maybe I need to close out of the project ledger completely. Let's just do that. It should actually, you might even need to close out of your company completely just for it to reset. Anyway, we're back to the full list again there at that point. Be nice just to have a reset button at the top as well. Right. Any other questions just on that activity? Obviously, you can send that information to Excel, you can print the list, but also you've got reports available for generating that type of information as well. Right. Okay. We'll move on in that case. Next, we want to look at outside of the record, and we're going to have a look at this inquiry option. Now, this is one of those that often gets overlooked within the projects option. And if we just pop into inquiry, obviously if I needed, I can choose a different project from the list, but we're looking at project 1 at this stage. It's got pulls the name through for you. And again, you can choose how you want to display the structure, but I'm just going to leave it by reference. Now at this stage, I've got my my summary, I suppose, for project 1. Now project 1, and some of you might not see this if you've never used if you're not using the structure, you'll not see the breakdown. So you'll not get this little plus sign. If I click on that, it shows me project 1 by itself, project 2. Obviously project 4 not pulled through because I haven't posted any transactions against that one yet, even though it's part of this as part of the sub-project itself. So you've got your breakdown of your actual, your committed, your budget totals, and your variance. You've got that by essentially the individual projects themselves. So project 1, top level, this one. And also I've got project 2 where I've got some information already recorded against it. Now you've got your actual costs, you've got your committed costs, you've got your budget, and then you've got your variance. And again, the variance calculation will differ. Do you want to include committed costs in variance, or this little tick box at the bottom? If I tick it, I think I've got £150 still as a committed cost against project 1. So if I click it, you'll see that the calculation, it changes. This information here is still the same. However, you should have you should have that variance option. You'll see this one does change. So it's not ticked by default, so just be aware of that one. Just going back, Margaret, you mentioned there about the inquiry. So the inquiry here, I just highlighted project. You've got inquiry on the top toolbar there. So it should bring up that screen. Whether you're using like a structure or not, you should have that option available to you. So I just expanded that project. So we got these, I suppose what I would term level 1. There's a few different levels, and the levels available to you, or the number of levels available to you, will depend on whether you do use sub-projects or not. So in this instance, if I highlight that one, I've got the breakdown. Initially, I've got the totals. I can see the breakdown. So I can see the breakdown by structure. But then let's say we're looking at that and we want to see, right, actually we want more information on the say the actual costs, for instance. So what we could do is just highlight the relevant line, double click it, and it drills down to the next level. A bit like, in a way, it's a bit like when you're looking at your VAT returns and you start drilling down. So you drill down on a figure on the VAT return, it gives you one level of information, but then you can go to the next level. So it's the bit that I always think a lot of people miss when you're looking at that inquiry option. So in this instance, we've gone from this sort of top level totals per project. We've double clicked, we've got project 1 now specified. It's telling me at the top it's this project only, so I'm only looking at what's actually physically being posted to project 1 itself. So we got that breakdown. So it's broken down by cost type. Now I might want to go a stage further and show it by cost code. So let's for labour. If I did drill down, now I haven't posted anything against that labour 2. If I had, it would show me the breakdown. And I can go a stage further beyond that. So I'm thinking, right, labour 1, for instance, the cost code, I've got actual of 3,325. If I double click it, I can now get to transaction level. So that's the lowest or the most detailed level you can get down to. So you don't have to necessarily go running reports for everything like you're trying to get at or filtering your activity list. It's quite common. I just close those windows just to go into the inquiry option and then start drilling down to get at the information you need. I suppose it just depends on the level of detail you want. So don't overlook that one. It's a good little option, that one. And obviously what we've looked at so far, you can have a play around with these options as well. I always encourage you, and I think I've included it in the slides today, have a go within the demonstration company or the practice company. Yes, if you haven't set up any records, that's a great option and you just want to play around with it. But for reports, you can have a go with them. It's not going to cause any harm to run a report or use the inquiry option. Right, speaking of reports, let's crack on. I'll try not to keep you to 12 o'clock today. So let's go back to my screen. So we're going to look at reports next. I did count these the other day just to make sure that was right. There are 49 standard reports in the project ledger. Now, you're probably never going to use that many, but again, it's when people have asked for, right, I want a summary level, a detail level, I want that report to include committed costs or exclude committed costs. It just really depends on what you require. And the best bit of advice I can give you with regard to reports is have a go of them. Now, there are, as I say, there are 49. We'll have a look at some of them in just a moment. Potentially, there are now 50 as well. There's in the advanced report library, I think just within the last week or two, there's been a new budget report designed for projects. So just to give you that top level budgeting information that you would have entered on the budgets tab. So that's available to download via the report library if you want them. Obviously the ones you do use, I would encourage you to flag them as favorites. We'll see that in a moment. And don't overlook the option to output to Excel as well. So a lot of people will preview information, can't quite get at the information I want. If you might need something specific, there's always options for you. Applying filters, using custom fields. Possibly, if you're feeling adventurous, you might want to edit or even design your own reports. We do have a report design service as well, should you prefer to go down that route where we can design it for you. Maybe chargeable that, but again, contact support and they'll be able to check that for you. I've included a link on that slide as well. There's a good article within our help center which outlines the report and the kind of information they show. But again, best advice I can give you, have a go of them. Let's have a look at some of them though, just to give you an idea. So back to my screen. We're in projects. If I pop into reports, again, don't get caught out by that either. If you want to run reports, it's a bit like customers or suppliers. If you are highlighting specific records and go into reports, it'll then base your report on what you've got selected. So if you want to base it on all of your projects, just click clear at the top before you go in. It'll remove any highlights that you've got there. Pop into reports, and then we can start having a look. Now, by default, and you're probably aware of this one already, good little feature is your favorites folder. It highlights that by default. If anyone is actually on version 30 yet, there'll not be many of you, if any, but the odd person might be on version 30. It may look a little bit different in this top left-hand corner. But favorites by default, it'll show any that you've flagged. So rather than you think, right, where's my revenue summary? Which folder is that in again? You can obviously, when you find them, if there's a specific one you want to include and you use all the time, just click on your little star and it will add it onto your favorites. And you can just drag them as well if you want to reposition them on your list. If you want to get rid of one from being a favorite, just click on the star, it'll remove it for you. So quite self-explanatory, the folders here. So your first one, your committed costs. So if anyone's using the stock allocation option or purchase orders, it would pull that type of information through. Your cost codes, your cost types. Cost code list is often a good one just to have, just to speed things up a little bit. So you can check what you've got set up. If we just have a quick look at that one. Again, you can see I don't have much set up at that point. The only thing I would maybe mention about this one, and it's something it doesn't do by default, it lists your cost codes that you've got set up. It lists them in the order that you've set them up. Rather than maybe putting them in alphabetical order. I'm sure that's something our support team would be able to assist with if you did specifically want them in that. But again, remember this type of thing, you might do it yourself. Something I would mention anyway, sending report information to Excel or possibly even data to Excel. If I click that, I'll just drag that across so you can see what it's done. Puts it in the same order, but you've got that information in Excel at that point. So it should then be easy enough to sort that information into whatever's required. So again, rather than, you're looking and think, it's not quite what I'm after. It's got the information on there, but actually it's not quite what I'm after. Using your additional resources, applying filters, using your analysis fields or your custom fields as sometimes referred to, sending to Excel can often a few different ways to crack the same nut. Right, let's just get on to daybooks. Daybooks, as you're probably aware as well, daybooks is something that is very specific to specific transaction types. So if I wanted a list of bank payments specifically that we've sent, maybe I want a list of invoices. And again, this is where a lot of the reports are almost duplicated, but it depends on the level of information you want. So if I just run that one, for instance, I run the summary, it'll give me the top level information there for that one. If I go and have a look at the detailed report, just preview that. Now it's going to give me slightly different information this time. So I'm getting things like nominal code being included. So again, it depends on the level of information you want. Remember, you've always got those options at the top, send the report to Excel or send the data to Excel. It depends what you want to do with it. Report to Excel, just to give you an idea what this one would look like if I click report to Excel. It's going to send it across to Excel. Now, this isn't great if you want to start manipulating information. So it's almost like it's taken an image of that report and just popped it on there. So you'll see that sort of column R, for instance, is completely blank. I've got I think, is that a blank column as well? I think it is. So column U is blank. So all the spacing and things like that, and some areas you'll have merged fields, that type of thing. So again, depends what you're after. If I use the same report, I send data to Excel, I've now got the analysis options. Just widen that, I can see the dates, etc. And it puts in these sort of, what do you call that? I can't think of the word off the top of my head. These sort of filters, these auto filters that we've got populated for the information. So again, easy to filter that information should you want it. I know a lot of you will probably prefer working in Excel to do your analysis than in Sage itself. Olga, I'll save your question to the end as well. So we'll see that in a bit. So daybooks is all about specific transaction types. My project reports, this is the additional budget report that you can download via the advanced report library if anyone wants that. Now, I did include the clickable link on the slides if anyone wants that, just to give you a quick idea of what that looks like. Very basic report. So again, I didn't have much information on the budgets against the against project one. Did I key a budget? I don't think I did key a budget in. So again, just really depends what you're after. But that's the additional one that wouldn't be there by default. You would need that to access the advanced report library. Project details, things like activities. So let's just have a look at this one as an example that I've stored. Just accept that. It just sort of depends on what you want. So for this specific project, you've got your summary of your revenue, so sales invoices and bank receipts if you've entered any that link to a specific project, and also a list of the cost transactions. And it'll give you sort of a basic profit calculation as well, and that's going to be done per project that you've got highlighted on that initial screen there. So again, we've got revenue summary. Let's have a quick look at that one. In this case, it's just giving me the revenue. So more of a summary. It's not giving me a breakdown this time. If I wanted that breakdown, again, you're looking to run a different report. So I've just got that top level information for each project. Project profits. It's one that obviously everyone's interested in. Have I made a profit? You might not be interested in profit with regard to project costing or the project's ledger. You might just use it as a way of monitoring costs against particular projects. That's quite common to do that, but you do have that profitability options in there. So let's just preview that one. Again, you can see, I'll just zoom in a bit to make it a little bit clearer. You can see the type of information that's included. So as I mentioned earlier, best advice I can give you with regard to reports is run through them. If you find a one that's sort of what you want, flag it as a favorite. You can always unflag them as well to remove them if required. Obviously, you've got your purchase orders, if anyone uses that area. You've got your resources, again, linking in with those project-only costs and credits that we looked at in last week's session. And then you've got the stock allocations as well. So have a go of the reports. If there's anything you're not certain of, or maybe you can't find what you're after, just going back to that slide for a moment. Find the right button. So if there's something you can't find, remember you've got filters and custom fields. So can you flag your projects in a certain way? Often custom fields, filters, using filters prior to running a report, it will sort of, I suppose, from my experience, it'll mean that you can then get at the information you want. Now, what do I mean by filters? Just in case anyone's not familiar with that one, there is a few recordings on filters, I think, on our webinar recordings. But just going back to my, share the right screen. Yes, I have. So applying a filter. So if, for instance, I wanted to look at this and I think, right, I want a list of all of the projects or want to run a report just on the projects that are currently active. So this one here isn't active. Now, yes, I could go and highlight the ones I'm after, but chances are you're going to have a much bigger list than I am. So easiest way to do that, if you've got a great big list, is to start using filters. So I can go in and I can say, right, I want to filter. So I want to see where the project status. So I'll just scroll down and find that particular option. So status number in this case. And I could say is equal to. And then I could just say, right, of the status, I want only the active ones. Maybe I want to say, right, I want everything except, so I want active and snags, for instance. I could do that as another line, and I'll do or where status number is equal to number 2. Maybe I just want everything except the ones that are flagged as completed. So I could do maybe is not equal to completed. Click apply, and then these must all be active. Let's say I want to get rid of this initial ones as well, to maybe use that one as a better example. So where status number is not equal to, and I'll just do initial. In the background, I've got all the other ones. So in my instance, it's just flagging them. It's just showing me the active ones. It's a good way as well, where once you're finished with a project and you've flagged it as with the appropriate status. So let's just say it was this one as an example, and I've gone in and I say, right, well, actually, we're finished with that one now. I could just save it. And I could say, right, well, of all the projects, I just don't want to display this one. All the others, that one that was flagged as initial and the active ones, I'll display those. So back into the filter, and I'm just going to change that one to is not equal to completed. So I've got that initial one back. So a couple of ways to crack the same nut sometimes. You might be wanting to run a report just based on, if I go into this one as an example, on the analysis, you can see I've used one of the analysis fields for project manager, and I've put the name of that project manager in there. Now you can use these fields for whatever you want. Again, we covered that in session 1. So project manager, I just want to see maybe I want to see all of the projects that Bob's currently, we've got where Bob is currently flagged as being the project manager. So I'll go back to filter. Now I might leave that one on, I might not. Let's just clear it. And I'll just say where. And we'll scroll down to project manager. It should recognize that whatever we've called the analysis field. If you've not renamed the analysis fields, it will actually just say analysis 1, 2, and 3. But in this case, we got project manager because we have changed it, and I'll say is equal to, and then I'll just type Bob. Now it's not case sensitive, that field, just in case anyone's wondering that one. So I'll click apply, and I can see in this case the 2 projects that I've got set up where Bob is managing those. And then if I go to run a report, it will only include those 2 on that report. So useful option. And when I used to support the report designer, when I was phone-based many, many years ago, that would resolve so many queries. People come through and say, I want this report. And you say, well, have you thought about applying a filter beforehand? Rather than trying to get involved with a report design and try to apply filters and criteria and expressions, etc. behind the scenes. Just go in, apply your filter, make sure you've got the right results, and then run your report. Right, okay. Let's just pop back to the slides. So it brings us sort of towards the end of the today's demo. I am going to, in a moment, I'll open up to questions as well. Remember, you do have that demo data and practice data. I can't stress that one enough. It's a great tool if you've got someone maybe in your practice that's just maybe started and you're just learning Sage. That's how they have a play around. Have a play around yourself. If you're in a certain area you're not using, and you're wondering how something works within the software, you don't want to sort of potentially have any impact on your data, then you've got the 2 options available to you. Just remember that default login is manager if you are prompted. Questions, if you want to start popping them in now, I've got a couple outstanding. I'll pick those up in just a moment. Help Center. Loads of information in there. I always like to promote the Help Center on my sessions. I've included a few links for you as well, just to get to the key Help Center articles that you may be interested in. So that list of reports, the advanced report library article, which enables you to download additional reports should you need them. Projects, remember, I'll be adding this recording to the other two that are already available so that should be available certainly by the end of today. Just a bit of admin to get that one up and running. So watch out for that one if you do need a bit of a recap. So any questions, we'll quickly pick those up now. So Margaret, you were just mentioning, could the filter contain or condition be expanded to include contains? I'm assuming that's a yes. Well, yes and no. The reason it doesn't necessarily need to do that is when you bring in wildcards. So as an example, I've got, let's just knock my filter off. And I've got a one here, so the name, it's as part of the name, it's got a number 2 in it. You'll see this one doesn't. So what I can do is, and I can base this on a number of different options. So I can go into filter. This is where wildcards might come in. So if I look for a project name, and I'll say is equal to, and if I was just to say, right, I'm looking for that with a 2 in, it's not going to find anything if I apply that because there's nothing with just the name 2. So this is where wildcards come in. So I think it's off the top of my head, I think it's an asterisk. If I do asterisk 2, click apply. It's not that one. $2. Is it $2? It's a while since I've used wildcards. So yeah, in this case, it's looking for anything, so where the project name is equal to, and dollar means basically somewhere within, so essentially what you're saying there contains number 2. Click apply, and then I've got the ones that have a name which include the number 2. So if I just do TIO as an example, or let's do ION. So that one includes ION in the title, so does this one. So I'll go back to filter and I'll just amend it. I'll do $ION. And again, it should include it. So wildcards just give you that even more flexibility. So worth looking for that one there. It was Margaret. Yeah, it was Margaret that asked that. So have a look for the wildcards. Again, that's something that's covered in detail in the filters webinar recording if you are interested. It's sort of, again, just adding that added flexibility, those additional options that you require. Adi, your question from very first question we had when we just about started today it was to do with adding attachments. So to include attachments in your backup, you've got, well, what you need to do when you go to File and Backup. So if you've done attachments and you've attached them to a record, if you want to include them in the backup, it's this checkbox here. So record attachments, that's in addition to your data files. So it would then include them in your backup. Not ordinarily, we always recommend normally your daily backup would be data files only, but you can include record attachments as well. Similarly, if it was attachments only or layouts only or records only, reports only that you wanted to back up, you can do them individually as well. Always worth, if you've amended your layouts, always worth having a layouts only backup as well. Give it a file name, choose where you want to save it to, okay, off it goes. So nice and simple. Hope that helps. So they're not included in the standard backups. You need to click that little attachments checkbox. Right, okay, just before 12 o'clock, we'll hit the end button at that point. So many thanks for coming along. If you've got any additional questions, do get in touch with me. Just email me direct if it's in relation to what we talked about today. I'll try and get an answer straight back to you if it's today. So many thanks for coming along. Little exit survey will pop up as you leave today. If you can take an extra minute, that's all I ask. If you can take a minute just to pop some feedback on there, thoughts, ideas that you want to share with us, that'd be greatly appreciated. I love reading those comments just to see if we've hit the mark or not. Follow-up email will be with you in round about an hour's time, and hopefully the recording should be available by then for you as well if you need a bit of a recap. Again, any thoughts, ideas beyond that you want to tell me about, just reply to your webinar emails and that'll come to me direct. So once again, many thanks. Take care, stay safe, have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you on some of the webinars next week. Many thanks.